Testing 4, 3, 2, 1. Ultra low latency mode. Come on, YouTube. Come on, YouTube. Skip ahead because this is going out live and I have to wait for the preview to come up. The gears are turning. We're trying the ultra low latency mode. And again, like last time, my image isn't coming up on the fucking stream. We'll give it a moment. 30 seconds in. Okay, it's loading again. Here we go. There it is. The Panasonic GH7, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I've enjoyed the Panasonic GH6 for the last 2 years as a vicarious owner, which means that I enjoy the camera through other people's recollections, insights, reports, problem finding, problem solving. But I never really felt like the GH6 was a particularly satisfying consummation of the GH line Micro Four Thirds destiny. It was like this weird, we thought we were walking to the top of the mountain and then suddenly the path just veered off and we ended up in this fucking weird cave and no one quite knew what to do. Do we try and walk through the cave to the other side? Do we go back to where we started? It was a bit of a nightmare. Now, some people said, hey, the cave is awesome. The GH6 is an awesome camera. And it kind of is a beast of a camera. That's a part of the problem, folks. I don't really need 5.7K. I sure as fuck don't need a cooling fan. 4K 120. Now, this is the funny thing. If you want the 4K 120, does that mean that basically you're stuck with a cooling fan? Because I would be, for GH7, put it in the comments, I would forego the 4K 120 if it meant there was no fan. Maybe they can push it to 4K 90 without a fan. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Now, what we all want is the new autofocus, the phase detector, whatever the fuck they call it. And potentially, can you imagine like a GH5 but with autofocus? Like that is, even without any further video settings, that's the camera to indoor cameras. 4K no cropping, unlimited recording time, proper autofocus. That's why the GH7 is actually a bit of a problem for Panasonic, because what the hell do they do after that? Like going from 1080p to 4K makes sense. It's a real improvement. Watching it on a 31-inch monitor, you can tell the difference. All these people saying there's really no difference between 4K and like 1080. Like they might have been true if you're watching it on a TV across the room, but people have given up their TVs. They're either watching on their phones or they're watching on computer monitors. So that whole, caveat, if you're across the room, doesn't really apply. I will say that 5.7K is at this point in time pointless, because even if you could resolve it on your monitor, I don't know that's going to make that much difference. Even if you could record in 8K, let's just say 8K, and you say, okay, I can zoom in and still get good resolution, it's going to be soft as fuck. Why? Because your lenses, for the most part, are not going to resolve 8K. So, just my 2 cents. Just my 2 cents. The Panasonic GH7, if I could design it, I would have the 4K 120 somehow without a cooling fan. I'd have a new battery that lasted a lot longer. It'd have to be at least twice the size, because that's the problem with the GH6. I'd have 2 USB ports so that you can use one for powering and one for information. I'd have at least 2 card slots, but possibly 4. Is that too much to ask? Because I don't want to go over to CF Express. It's just too expensive. You know, I mean, you could say, okay, prices will come down. Maybe just say 2 CF Express. Like, maybe this is the camera that steps away from SD. But can you imagine just not being able to use an SD at all? Like, I'm going to say for the next 3 or 4 years, that'll probably be an issue. Like, if you you just need a card. You can't buy one online. You need it like in the next 24 hours, and you're not in a city, so you can't just go and buy one. What are you going to do? You have to borrow a card. There's going to be SD cards everywhere. You can buy an SD card at a post office. You ain't getting CF Express in a small town. If you're with other people, most people won't have them. So maybe 2 CF Express and 1 SD, just for that backup, just for that emergency situation. I'm assuming it's still Micro Four Thirds. That's kind of by definition the sensor. I think 25 megapixels is fine. As long as it's at least 20. You already have 20. You got 25 from the new G9, but was there anything sacrificed is what I want to know. Did that sacrifice low light? It'd be cool if there were a way of like sort of pixel merging or something where you could drop the resolution of the camera down to like 12 and then take photographs with better low light capability. Don't know if that's possible, probably not. But I don't know that I want to sacrifice too much low light for those very rare occasions. You know, like who really needs to go from 20 to 25? Who's printing posters? You can print pretty good posters anyway off 20, very good posters. But go to 25. I want the ultra high resolution. I like that live view thing to come back that they had with the GH5 Mark II. I've never tried it, but that should be incorporated into the GH7. I want the focus ring control. That probably will be, because I think that became standard by the time the GH5 Mark II came out. GH5S got it on a firmware, thank Christ, but they never gave it to the GH5, which is really unfortunate, because I'm sure they could. So yeah, tilt screen. I gotta say, like, I'm not a huge fan of the GH5 like flip out screen. I know that it's not like I blog with it. Like, no one really points that camera at themselves. I'm happy to have more of a tilt screen that if it could still flip out, that would be great. But it's just annoying with the GH5 how you have to sort of open it and then tilt it. And it feels very, like, I've had a camera fall off or tripod topple over when the tilt screen was out, and you're just thinking, my God, what if it snaps off? What if I break my tilt screen? My flip out screen, I should say. So, people always talk about EVF. I think the EVF is actually quite good. I mean, you can get I find when focusing you have a slight advantage on the EVF. I mean, maybe what that means is the touch screen itself needs to be increased in resolution. I wouldn't even mind it being a little bit bigger. Just diagonally maybe half a centimetre bigger. It is a bit of a crowded little screen. Like if you're going to make the camera that big and beefy, GH6 style, I think you deserve a bigger screen. And if you've got a bigger battery, that would make sense. If they're going to slim it, this is the big question. For me, this is the biggest question about the GH7. Do they slim it back down on Ozempic to GH5 size? Because that is, if they do that, I'm basically going to buy the GH7. If it's GH6 but with phase detect, I'm probably going to go full frame and get something else. I will stick to the GH5. I might upgrade it to a GH5 Mark II. I do not want to own a big fucking camera unless it's full frame. I'm thinking about, I'm not going to have the money, but just fantasizing is what I should say. I'm fantasizing about buying the new Pentax full frame when that comes out. Because Pentax, they make fucking good cameras. No one talks about them, but I have a backup camera. I think it's called an X5 or something, or a K5, and it's I think it's either one or either X5 or K5, but it's the cheaper one. It's an incredible. It's only 10 or 12 megapixel, but it's still working after 10, 12 years, and beautiful image quality. Takes AA batteries, which is a little bit annoying, but yeah, and the zoom lens on that thing, fixed lens, super zoom, Pentax put everything I knew about lenses went into that lens, and it's beautiful. So Pentax make amazing cameras. I've got some vintage Pentax lenses. Why not buy the next Pentax when it comes out? They've got an amazing star tracking algorithm in there, and it's just a way of getting the full. I know I should stick with Panasonic and get their side Mark II, blah 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 blah, but I don't know, I kind of feel like trying. I feel like a bit of a fanboy if I just use Panasonic for everything. I do want a GH7. I really wanted the GH6, but I feel like I've owned it through other people. We all love to hate, we hate to love the GH6. A lot of these fucking YouTubers, they buy it. Oh, it's so amazing, and then they sell it. 3 months later, they're sick of it. They sell it. Why? Because for all their bullshit about the vertical aspect ratio shit, they don't make content in that format. Most of them. That's for TikTokers and teenagers. It's not for YouTubers. Unless you're making that stupid substanceless content. And maybe, I don't know, if you're making content for teenagers, I feel like that's teenagers for teenagers. I feel like if you're a fucking adult, you're making normal, horizontal, rectangle style videos. And so you don't even really need it anyway. GH5 has an anamorphic mode, which is the same. Allows you to do the same thing. It's just that no one ever really talked about that. So basically, I don't need anything with that kind of resolution. The GH6, yeah, people decided they just didn't want it anymore, and they flipped it. They got rid of it. Probably took a bit of a hit financially, but the GH6 is one of those cameras that just didn't really offer anything much beyond the GH5 Mark II. No one really gave a shit about the extra resolution. All of these video formats, no one's making fucking production quality, proper Hollywood production quality content where you need those insane. No one wants to sit there and spend fucking 6 weeks color grading a 5-minute fucking YouTube clip when they could just use a preset. You know, so there's all this shit that was in the GH6 that just didn't really matter for your average consumer, or your average consumer wants. And even people who think they're above average, they're not most of the time. Like, unless you're literally working on a series for Netflix or something like that, you're just an average consumer. All we need: 4K, dual memory card slots, good battery life, unlimited recording time, no cropping. That's it. We don't even really need the autofocus. I feel like you throw in not so much high production, but you throw in YouTube production, that's when you do need the autofocus. So that's a huge market, and there's a lot of like average users with YouTube channels. So you get that phase detect, and you're done. You're set. What else do you really need? Will it have 8K? I wouldn't be surprised if it had 8K. I feel like 5.7K is kind of this no man's land where is it really worth fucking around with? I don't think so. I mean, I haven't tried it. GH7, it has to give certainty where the GH6 gave ambiguity. GH7 needs to be a camera where it's basically a no-brainer to anyone in love with the GH series. So yeah, the GH6 came up and we were like, whoa. This kind of looks great, but it kind of looks shit. You know, the GH7 just has to look great. The GH6 will be left in the cesspit. It's got GH6, like, I saw one new and I don't have the money, but it was stupid cheap. In US dollars, it was about 1,000 US dollars. Brand new. It had an open box, that was it. But I thought, I just don't really want it. I wouldn't mind a GH5 Mark II. So when people are like rejecting the GH6 at 1,000 US dollars new, you know you've got a problem. And that fucking thing, when a GH7 comes out, it depends if the GH7 is slimmed down. If the GH7 is basically the GH6 but with phase detect and a few other bells and whistles, maybe a better monitor, you know, it'll definitely have a new sensor, by the way, so that fucking streaking isn't there. In that case, yeah, it all comes down to form factor to differentiate itself from the GH6. Like if the GH7, yeah, it's just a pig fucking bloated brick. I still think though with the autofocus, the GH6 is you know, I guess you could look at the GH7 if it comes out with, let's just put it this way, if the GH6 and the GH7 are basically the same camera, one has phase detect, the other doesn't, and the GH6 goes down the toilet in terms of what it's worth, right? However, if the GH7 is more like a GH5, and maybe it doesn't have some of the high-end video modes, but it does have phase detect, and maybe it doesn't have some of the like whatever it is, ProRes or RAW, or that kind of shit, right? That leaves the GH6 on a bit of a pedestal. Because a lot of the people who need that stuff, they don't need autofocus. They're all shooting manual. That is the Netflix style camera, right? No one's using autofocus for high-end commercial production. So GH6, but then like, you know, what is the market? You know, what is the fucking market? Are people really gonna, you know, are the wannabes, see the wannabes who act like they need that shit but they don't, they're gonna want to get the newest thing, which isn't gonna, they'll go over the full frame if they have to. The wannabes will be buying cameras that are like just released. if the GH7 is slimmed down back to GH5, I think that would be fantastic for, and hopefully like a little bit cheaper than the GH6 was, for consumers, because we don't need all that high-end stuff. We just need the phase detect, autofocus. We can't hope, most of us can't hope for anything bigger than a YouTube video. So give us what we need. Don't give us the type of camera that is just going to please some fucking reviewers. And you don't really know how reviewers are kind of like sheep. I feel like they all have to, it's like they all have to say the same thing. I think something where, and you know, I wish they would get a bit stylish with it. I know it doesn't matter, but why are they all black? Can't they jazz it up a bit? Can't they like do something that gets people excited? Fuck, I got a camera sitting next to me. It's from the 1970s, I think. It's brown. Back then, they were doing brown cameras, black cameras, and silver cameras. And brown ones are very rare. But at least they were, you know, playing around. Every GH5, GH5S, GH5 Mark II, they all look identical. And give it a new name, you know. I know they won't. I know this. It amazes me how people who are paid to come up with marketing ideas, they don't seem to have anything. They don't do Panasonic doesn't do marketing. All they know about marketing is, oh, let's send some advanced copies out to the top 50 YouTubers in the camera world. Well, it's not even 50, it's more like maybe 10. You know who they all are. Or the Micro Four Turds channels, right? Yeah, so they're all going to get one. And that's it for the marketing. There'll be a little release party thing and they'll all get invited to Japan, and make the camera exciting. Don't just rely on the specs. I would say at this point, you know, why not have a juncture where there's like a GH7 and a GH7 Pro, and the GH7 is basically just slimmed down. I would actually like it to be slightly smaller than the GH5 if you really want to know. GH5, which brings us to the topic of, you know, should Panasonic release a compact camera? Obviously they should, because Olympus is in the shit. Olympus guy or OM Systems, they might not be around in a few years from now, the way things are looking. You know, we don't want to be left without anyone making an M4 small format camera. But with the GH7, I would be happy to see a GH7 and a GH7 Pro. And a GH7 Pro would be everything that's in the GH7, but it's as big as a GH6. And you've got it maybe has a different sensor, a high megapixel sensor for 5.7K. But it definitely has that high resolution mode that no one but the pros really need. Right, it's got the cooling fan, because they've already developed the chassis for it. Like, they just put it in it. So the GH7 Pro could be on the GH6 chassis, and GH7 could be on the GH5 chassis. That might create issues for battery types, but the GH7 probably will have okay battery life if they don't go crazy with video modes. There's no reason why it should use more power, right? Unless phase detect uses a lot of power, I don't know why it would. I think it's more of an algorithm thing, right? In fact, it might even use less because it focuses so quickly. So, just saying. But yeah, the Panasonic GH7, when is it going to come out? I saw someone saying that the GH6 has been out 3 or 4 years. No, it hasn't. It's been out for 2. It feels like 3 or 4. And no one still quite knows what to think about that camera. But the GH6, you know, if you'd bought one, you'd probably want it to be like current for at least 3 years. So I don't think we're going to see a GH7 in 2024. I'll be honest, if it's ready, I would like it to come out this year, in the second half of this year. If it's not ready, they should take as long as they need, because we don't want it to be rushed. I felt the GH6 took so long, and yet it still feels like something really went wrong with that sensor. I don't know how that got through. That camera will always be considered a bit of a dog because of that sensor. So yeah, the GH7 coming out a bit early probably makes sense. Look, the world's in a pretty good financial situation in general. I mean, the cost of living's high, but there's just a ton of people with money, right? It's funny how this cost of living gets really bad. You see more and more people spending like money's going out of fashion. Those days aren't going to last forever. Maybe I'm doom and gloomy, but I would say Panasonic GH7 should be priced reasonably, should come out fairly soon and replace the GH6, and Panasonic should make hay while the sun shines. Well, economic conditions are good. If they delay it for, say, late 2025 or 2026, you don't know what the world's going to look like then. It might be a very hard camera to sell. There's an appetite for it now. You know, people don't buy cameras now for them to last 10 or 20 years. They only want it to last, honestly, like a year and a half. That is the reality of the market. You see all these people, G6 comes out, they've bought it the next day. Fucking piece of shit camera. Bought it the next day. Way over. That thing was so expensive when it came out. I said they had one for $1,000. They were over $3,000 body only when they came out. That's crazy money for an M4 camera. Panasonic GH7, it is the destiny of Micro Four Thirds. It is the destiny of Panasonic. We definitely want this camera. We probably do need it because of the autofocus, but we want them to get it right. We don't want them to like fuck it up like the GH6 and then everyone is like, I might just wait for another M4 that is just a bit smaller. If they, you know, if there's no like like GH5 it's not really compact, but it's just medium-sized camera in Micro Four Thirds, it's state of the art. Why bother? Why not just go over to full frame, for fuck's sake? Oh, but the lenses are expensive. No, they're not. They're cheaper than M4 lenses. You just get vintage ones. Okay, it's manual focus, but going from M4 to full frame, no one's going to give a shit initially about manual focus, right? Because it'd just be a whole new experience. If I was going to make that move, I'd probably buy one kit lens with autofocus and then just migrate my most of my lens inventory is fucking vintage full frame. I got Pentax, I got Olympus, I got Minolta, I got fucking M42 mount, I got CCTV, although they're not full frame, I guess. But I've got loads of full frame lenses. As long as it's a mirrorless camera, they're all going to adapt perfectly. That's why I'm thinking of getting a Pentax full frame if I go full frame. Because a Pentax full frame will still fit, I think, as long as I keep the K mount, my Pentax vintage. And I've got probably at least half a dozen in Pentax. So the GH7, they've got to get it right. Otherwise, there's going to be move out of it micro four thirds. They can't have two GH6 sort of semi-clusterfucks in a row. I wouldn't mind if they... Look, the GH5 is quite... Aside from... Look, it's a reasonably comfortable camera to use. It's not great, though. If they could make it a bit more... maybe like a smaller camera, but like a deeper grip. And get rid of that fucking display. I think they got rid of that on the GH6, but that display button is so fucking annoying. I avoid it 90% of the time now, but sometimes I still hit it by accident. And then when you want to hit it in the dark, you can't find it. It's just the most ridiculously positioned button I've ever seen on a camera. I'd like to see some more vivid modes. Like, one thing I've struggled with on the Panasonics that I have is I just can't capture like certain purples, like violet, pink, like normally when I'm photographing flowers, I just can't capture the vividness of the color. And I've tried fucking around with the custom color palette things, it just never seems to really work. Part of it is the LCD doesn't display it properly, and then sometimes the photos, it still don't look quite right, but they're better than the LCD makes you think. So some of the color science could be improved along those lines. And why not have like it's sad when the vivid mode just looks like normal, like how it should. There's this like appetite for washed out color. I see these fucking YouTubers like, it's like they're filmed in RAW and never color graded, and I think that looks good. You know, it's one guy. He doesn't do that so much. He's got a micro four thirds. He doesn't get the color grading wrong, but his issue is he likes to soften, and he softens the image so much it just looks stupid. I don't know if he's editing it and just looking at it on a really small screen where you can't tell. You know how when you edit, you can sometimes have the program screen like really small, bit, you know, above your timeline. But yeah, people fuck around with these things they don't need to. So just get some new color modes, extra good vivid modes. We don't need like 6 different versions of washed out colors. It's not 2018, 2020 anymore. I am seeing YouTubers start to walk away from that kind of deal. I think people are a bit dumb. You know, the GH6 slow-mo claim to fame, like people are just a little bit over, apart from that camera conspiracies guy. He's the only one who seems to be clinging to, we still need more fucking slow-mo. Honestly, 4K 60, like for film, 4K 60 is enough. And for documentary, you know, 1080p at 120 does the job. It's a really good 1080 as well, the GH5. Like I said, I'd take... That is one of the few upgrades on the GH6 I would use, because I do shoot birds as a hobby in slow-mo. It's a pointless hobby, but I do shoot at 120 for probably about half of that work. If it's a small bird, you're always in 120. And I do notice that quality drop down, but the GH7, I mean, price point, if it could be in Australian dollars, like anything, I mean, exchange rate's going to fuck everyone up, that's the issue. Mind you, they're coming out of Japan. That's, you know, we shouldn't forget that, because I think they, like, even though the Japanese, they're going to price it in US dollars because that's probably their biggest market. But if it's like anything less than 2,800 Australian, that's kind of that'll move units for sure. I might even, if I've got the money, consider jumping on the hype train and buying one brand new early on. The other thing is, I don't think they're going to come down in price. If they've got the phase detect, of course they will. Phase detect with the bells and whistles, even if it's like a GH6 size monster, it's going to be the camera to beat for hybrid shooting. That's your one and done camera. Honestly, people will be able to finance that camera just by selling the two or three cameras they already own. That's your one and done, unless you need multiple cameras. But yeah. So will it be that cheap? I think it'll be more. I think it'll be over 3,000, unfortunately, but Australian dollars. So it will be a little annoying. Like, see, I'm in, just speaking for my own situation, like, I got the GH5 in 2020. Now, the GH5 came out in 2017. But it's still useful. It's just that autofocus. That's it. But I'm like, okay, I've been fairly patient. I didn't get the GH5 Mark II. I didn't get the GH6. I do have GH5S as well. Which I probably shouldn't have bought, but anyway, I did. I love that. I just, for me, I almost have that camera just because I like it in my collection. It's such a special camera. But speaking for myself, I don't really want to have to wait another 3 years. Like, let's say the GH7 doesn't come out until early 2026, because it's probably not coming out this year. It might be scheduled for late next year, but then let's say there's a couple of little delays, like there often is. And then it proves popular and it's expensive, so then you got to wait at least another 2 years before the prices are down, or at least 18 months. So you could be like, say it comes out January 2026, 2027, you could be like late 2027. So do I want to wait another 3.5 years to be able to buy a GH7 at a price point that's acceptable? Not really. Like, I kind of want to scratch the itch for a new camera next financial year. It's only 3 months away, 4 months away. Sorry, it's only 2 months away. So there's a little power outage. So what do I do? I mean, do I get the GH6? I feel like a melon. I feel like a fucking melon buying a GH6. Absolute fucking melon. And I'd have to sell something. Like, even at 1,000, that's like 1,700 Australian. I'd have to sell something. But I don't want to sell the GH5, because the GH5 has that, not compact but medium size. You take a lens off it, like if you've got two GH5s, that second camera slips into your bag like it's not there. I don't want to sell Plus my GH5, it's kind of stupid to sell it because it's such a great backup camera. Why piss it off for $700? It doesn't make any sense. The GH5 is too useful to piss it off for like, you know, $800 or whatever. It's just kind of dumb, right? Like, you might as well just keep it. And I don't want to sell. I guess you could say, okay, sell the GH5S, maybe get $1,000, and they're not making those anymore. What if that goes up in price? But okay, you say sell the GH5S for $1,000, chip in another $600-700, get a GH6. I don't know. The moment's over for the GH6. It'd almost be like a chore. I want to be actually excited and enjoy buying a new camera. I mean, it's so silly to think about it that way. Like, it should be about the photography, but you know, like buying something that's kind of old and no one wants, and I don't even really want it, but just because I feel like I need to get a camera, which is the dumbest thing ever. But a part of like modern photography, if you're like into YouTube and social media, is just the product development. And you can talk, like, all I've done is talk about it. Like, in a way, I've been pretty disciplined. Like the GH5S, that was purchased because it's a low light camera, and partly because it didn't have an IBIS. Because at the time I wanted to do low light work and I wanted to do recordings from my car. And then it just so happened there was a bit of a change of lifestyle, and neither of those things ended up happening. I still do occasionally take it out in low light, but very, very rarely. I just don't want to sell the camera, that's all. But yeah, like, it's not like I've rushed out and bought the GH6 or the GH5 Mark II, you know. And I don't need to. If I was going to rush out, it'd probably, you know, would it be the the G9 too? Because that's got insane video capability. It's just the cropping that annoys the fuck out of me in 4K. Because the cropping, when you're using vintage lenses, you're already cropped. So, to me, that's a bit of a no-go. And I don't particularly want to go I don't know why, I just don't really want to go full frame Panasonic just yet. And again, those cameras are too, like, they need to come down as well. When they start appearing secondhand, S5 Mark II, whatever it is, maybe that's when I go full frame. But like I said, I'm looking at the Pentax, and fuck, you talk about long time between drinks. What is it? Is it the Pentax K1? I think is their flagship full frame. I think they've got the second one out, but that came out years ago. Let me just Google that right now. Pentax. Yeah, there's a Mark II. It came out in 2018. It's almost as old as the GH5. April 20. It's literally 6 years old, and they haven't done an update. Google says, will there be a Pentax K1 Mark III? We've heard it's under development. And you know what? It looks like they're still really expensive. No one talks about Pentax, it's crazy. But they made bloody good lenses. Alright, second hand, 1700 from Japan. I mean, that's not too bad. But when when the Mark III comes out, they're going to crash as well. It's a pretty big fucking unit, and those have mirrors in them. They're actually DSLRs. They are not fucking mirrorless. Those are, like, they're pretty epic fucking cameras. I feel like that would make you, see, if you're going to go for a big camera, why fuck around with a GH6? Why not just get a proper DSLR? I mean, do it properly, you know what I mean? It's shit for video, like, it doesn't even do 4K, that camera. That one's got 18,000 shots on it. So, yeah. There's one that's got a good lens with it, but getting a bit off subject. So Panasonic GH7, I reckon it comes out probably late 2025. I know it might be 2026. I reckon they're going to try and get it in maybe before Christmas. And I think it'll sell like hotcakes. I think you won't be able to get one easily for a while. But I think they'll be, with the fade detector, I think they're going to sell like fucking crazy. And so they might even cost more on the Korean market because scalpers get involved. So yeah, we'll just have to wait. I think we'll start to see some rumours generate. Apparently there's a new Lumix camera coming out in this month. I don't know what the fuck it's going to be, but it's not going to be a GH7 because there would have been some hype. But I think the hype will start cranking in about 6 months from now, towards the end of this year, and it'll crank up all through 2025. So I think I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. If you made it so, if you want to see more or hear more ramblings on the GH7 or cameras in general, just leave a comment. I do like talking about this stuff. I don't really focus on it. I don't know if people want to hear it or if they just prefer the really short, snappy content. I don't like the short content, but yeah, drop a comment. Thank you, and see you later.